report. Featured in antiwar.com. Thanks to friend and supporter of the show, Eric Garris, for sending this my way. Emailed me this piece yesterday. This is by Dave DeCamp. A plea deal could free Assange from prison. Justice Department considering plea deal for Julian Assange. Since we covered the Day X hearings, we kind of feel a responsibility to make this one of our beats, where there's a development in this story. Yep. We really got to cover it. So this is a write-up based on a Wall Street Journal report. So the Justice Department is considering. The Justice Department is considering whether to offer WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange the opportunity to plead guilty to a reduced charge of mishandling classified information, the Wall Street Journal reported on Wednesday, citing people familiar with the matter. The report said DOJ officials and Assange's legal team have already had preliminary talks on what a plea deal might look like. However, Barry Pollock, a lawyer for Assange, said he has been given no indication that the department will take a deal. Quote, "It is inappropriate for Mr. Assange's lawyers to comment while his case is before the UK High Court, other than to say that we have been given no indication that the Department of Justice intends to resolve the case, and the United States is continuing with as much determination as ever to seek his extradition on all 18 charges, exposing him to 175 years in prison," Pollock said in a statement. Consortium News reported later in the day that it had previously learned of the talks between the U.S. and Assange's legal team on a potential deal, but the information was given off the record, so the outlet did not publicize it. Under the DOJ's indictment against Assange, he could face up to 175 years in prison under the Espionage Act for exposing U.S. war crimes by publishing classified documents leaked to WikiLeaks by former Army private Chelsea Manning in 2010. If Assange is convicted, it would set a dangerous precedent for press freedom, since publishing information obtained by a source is standard journalistic practice, whether classified or not. The Wall Street Journal report said that if the DOJ offers a deal for Assange to plead guilty to a lesser charge of mishandling classified information, like Joe Biden, next to the Corvette in the garage, it would be a misdemeanor, and he could potentially enter the plea remotely without going to the U.S. His time in London's Belmarsh prison, where he's been held since April 2019, would count toward his sentence, and Assange could be free shortly after reaching the deal. While such a deal could potentially secure Assange's freedom, it could still set a dangerous precedent, since it would criminalize the relationship, of course, yes, between a journalist and his source. Kevin Gosztola, author of the book Guilty of Journalism, The Political Case Against Julian Assange, suggested the U.S. could have leaked the talk of a plea deal to the press to portray Assange as unreasonable if he didn't take it. That makes sense that it would happen off the record in that way if that's their motivation. Basically, U.S. officials chat to the press about some possible plea deal for Assange when he isn't guilty of any crime. If Assange's team signals it would never be acceptable, then it is Assange's fault that he remains in prison. Officials can say he wants to martyr himself, Gosztola wrote on X. Last month, Assange's legal team presented its case for an appeal to the UK Home Secretary's decision to extradite Assange to the US, and a decision on whether or not he can appeal is expected to happen soon. So, a report of an off-the-record comment made that the DOJ is considering offering him a plea deal, so it would not exonerate him, while it would end the torture and send him home, which is a great thing. It would also accomplish their goal, in my humble opinion, of setting a very dangerous precedent regarding press freedom. It kind of gives our government a kind of off-ramp, a kind of compromise where they get the best of both worlds, because on the one hand, they get to set an example that, hey, we can criminalize journalism going forward, whatever we want. This would give them an opportunity to make that point without actually torturing a man to death and turning public sentiment sour on them. That could be where they're coming from, too. Maybe they want to offer him a plea so that they get the conviction on the books. Hey, don't any of you other journalists get any ideas about printing what we don't want you to see, without the PR nightmare of actually killing this guy in jail.
That is my belief. The 4D chess version, we just want to put it out there so they'll look unreasonable. Maybe. I don't say that's
you
not
never
possible.
know, of course. Yeah.
But it makes more sense to me that it's an election year, and Biden would like this off of his neck. He doesn't want this drumbeat of they're torturing a journalist to death. And as you say, God forbid he dies.
Well,
God forbid he dies. They don't give a shit if he dies. They don't want him to die before November.
Right. Exactly. And that's what his wife says is likely to happen if he is extradited. She says this is life or death, and that he will die. That's what she said. He will die if he is extradited to the U.S. He's in very, very frail psychological and physical health as it is. And we are expected to hear fairly soon whether or not he will be extradited. And so if this happens between now and November, that's just yet another nightmare for Joe Biden. And obviously it's a human nightmare for all of us, but we're just talking, from their point of view, obviously. I think they would like to get this case on the books. They would like to get it on the record that he is guilty without taking it to the visceral extreme in the public mind of actually torturing the man to death. That's what I think their motivation is there.
Well, I think you're right. That's a win-win for them.
Yeah.
Don't have to deal with this shit anymore, and you've established a legal precedent that you can't do what he did.
Exactly. And, whether or not Julian wants to take that deal, I've had no judgment either way. That is up to him. That's up to the family.
No one who hasn't been where he's been can judge that.
Right. Nobody can judge that. Nobody can judge that whatsoever. So whatever's right for him and the family is what they should do at this point.
Please clap.